Hey everybody, how are you today? So, in this lecture, we are going to go over the drafting tools of Revit as well as the modification tools. These tools are fundamental to pretty much everything there is in Revit. So, the wall tools, the floor, the ceilings, the roof, all those that we've used so far. We haven't done the ceilings yet, but we have done floors, roof, and walls. You actually were drafting in plan, but it also created a three-dimensional element. So drafting is integral to everything we do in Revit. The better you are at drafting in Revit, the better you will be at Revit in general. Um, very similar to drafting tools in AutoCAD, but instead of hot buttons, although you could use those, we typically just use the toolbar. So first things first is I'm going to just start a new default project. So I'm going to look and see if any is loaded. On my computer, they're not loaded, so I actually have to go navigate towards them. But on yours, I'm sure you'll be able to see them. You can just pick any default one is just fine. All right, 1 second, go down to Revit. Oh, not that one. There we go. All right. And hit OK. So here we are in our default template. So opens up right away into the floor plans, into the level 1 floor plan, and I can tell it's the level 1 floor plan by the project browser because the level 1 is bold there. So what we're going to do to explore all of the drafting tools is we're going to make a drafting view. So I'm going to go up to View, the View tab. Try to remember to push this control button so you can see where I am. And then I'm going to do Drafting View here. Click that. Right away, Revit wants us to name this new drafting view, so I'm just going to call this Drafting Practice. It also wants us to set the scale right away. This we can always change, so I'm actually going to set it to 3/4 inch equals a foot. And as we change the scale, once we create this view, you'll see what that does to our elements in our drafting view. Sorry. So I'm going to hit OK. All right, so if I look in the project browser, I can see that drafting views is now on my part of my views list. Specifically, under the drafting views, it says drafting practice. I can see that that's the window I'm in there, and it's bold there, so that's what's going on. I also have my level 1 open. I can actually close that. So everything that we're going to be drawing in this space is going to only live in this view. This will be a view-specific drawing, meaning everything we put in here will only live in here. It will not live in any sort of global model. So there's two types of lines or geometry or drafting elements, I guess you could say, in Revit. There's detail lines, which are view specific. They're only going to live in the view you're in the view that you're putting them in. And there's model lines. Model lines are three-dimensional and they'll live in the model. So if I leave that view, I will see them in another view. So they're sort of applied globally to the model. Okay, so here I am in drafting practice. I've got a white space, free range to sort of draw whatever I will. You'll notice it's different from CAD in that I don't have a 000 or UCS. We don't have any of that. We can just draw wherever. So I'm going to start by going to Annotate, and I'm going to click Detail Lines right here. So that's how we get to detail lines, annotate detail lines. Model lines, we go to a different location to get those, but we don't need to worry about those yet. So I'm going to click Detail Lines. And the two panels I'm going to go over in this lecture are the Draw panel, the Line Style panel, and then the Modify panel. Good way to think about that is in this panel, we're sort of creating and drawing elements. In this panel, we're assigning line weights and line types to those elements. And in this panel, this is sort of the modification of those elements. After you create them, what do you want to do to them? Do you want to move them, offset them, rotate them? All commands I know that you're familiar with in Revit. Okay, so I'm going to start with the line tool. I'm going to keep it on thin lines, but if you click down on that little drop-down menu there, you can see all the different types. I'll stick with thin lines, and I'm just going to get used to drawing. Okay, just clicking, having fun, not really thinking about it, just sort of seeing what Revit does to create lines. Okay, as you can see, it sort of creates a chain of lines as we go, as we start the line tool. If I want to start a line over in a different location, I can hit escape once and I can start a different line. If I hit escape twice, it totally exits out of the detail line tool. All right, let me go into annotate detail line again. I'm on the line tool. I'm going to uncheck chain this time in the options menu. I'm going to start drawing lines again. Now you'll notice it'll just draw one link of that line and then I can start over. So you can have them all connected or you can just draw them separately. That's your call. Okay, let's go to detail line and let's just sort of move to the right on this first row and then we'll just go to the next row and the final row. Rectangle, pretty straightforward. Upper left corner, bottom right corner. It's really corner to corner. It doesn't matter if you go bottom right to upper left or whatever the case may be. I'm going to start one here and I'm going to type in 2. Oh, it's not letting me. That's all right. I'm just going to place the rectangle. I'm going to hit escape a couple times. And let's zoom in on one of the rectangles. So I could select this whole rectangle in a couple ways. I could hover over the line, hit tab, and left mouse click to select that whole chain. Then I could, for example, do something to this, rotate, move, copy, or I could change its line weight to something else. Another way I could select all the lines is one selection box, upper left to bottom right. When you do that, everything in that selection box that's entirely in the selection box will be selected. So if I do that again, but I only grab that first line, you can see that the top line and bottom line aren't selected. If I select from bottom right to upper left, whatever crosses that selection box will be selected. Okay, so if I just want to select these two, I can do it that way. I can click on it, hold down Control, do it that way. I can select everything and then hold down Shift and deselect these two. Many ways to do the same thing. Okay, so let's select one of the lines on this rectangle. Actually, let's select this one. And right away, you'll see Revit gives you the temporary dimensions. Okay, so if I change this value, this line is going to move. So this is the line in question, not this line, because that's the one I selected from the beginning. So I'll type in 3 feet. You can see it moves. Now, we're not tied to the temporary dimensions that Revit gives us. I could, for example, left click and hold this little dot, drag it up to a different location, and now I can, say, type in 2 feet here, and that line will move in that direction. So let me grab this line. So here we go, 2.5 inches. I don't really care about this rectangle, so I'm just going to move it up to here. And now I can type in 5 feet. There we go. So this one moved because that's the one I selected initially. Okay, annotate, detail line. Let's move on to these two. So these are just making basic shapes. If I hover my mouse over that button, you'll see that essentially what you do is define how many sides of a shape you want, and then you draw a radius. That radius defines a circle, and within that circle, that shape will be placed. If you do the next one over, it does exactly the same routine, but it puts the shape on the outside of that circle. Rarely do I use these two, but you may find yourself using them. So I'm going to click on the first one. We'll just go over this one. If I look in the options bar right here, it says side 6. So let's change that to 8. Okay. Now I'm going to click once to define the center of the circle, and then I'll click again or input a value of 2 feet to define the other, the radius of that circle, and then our 8-sided shape gets placed within there. Go in there again. Okay, that's the first button right there, inscribed circle. And I put a value in for the offset of 1 foot. I'm going to define the center of the circle. But then my mouse, you'll see that the circle is always 1 foot from the end of my mouse. So if I type in 1 foot here to define the radius, it'll actually be 2 foot because it's offset by 1 foot. Whoa, look at all those temporary dimensions. Hit escape. So those are my 2 shapes there. Okay, annotate detail line. Here we have circle, right? Really straightforward. In this case, I'll pick a different line type. I'll grab the circle, and this just is radius defines the circle. I'm just dragging my mouse over. You can input a value, or you can just draw a bunch of circles. Happy little circles. It's my Bob Ross there for you. Here we go. Okay, detail line. Now these next 4, I will say I use the first one and the 4th one the most, the other 2 not as much. So these are your basic arc creation tools. So I'm going to start with that first one. Okay, very simple, beginning, end, and then the bend in the arc. So beginning, end, and then the bend. You just play and just get used to the click sequence. Beginning, end, bend. There we go. Okay, annotate, detail line. We'll go all the way to the end now. Now this is essentially your fillet with a rounded edge. Well, let's put nothing in for the radius right now. I'm just going to click one line and another line, and it asks you to define that radius. So let me go in there again. Detail line. I'll go that last one right there. Okay, I'm going to click once, click again, and oh, it doesn't like that one. I kind of did something goofy there. Here's how I typically use that tool. So I hit escape a bunch there. Annotate detail line. I'll grab that last arc creation tool. I'm going to check radius here, and I'm just going to put in 6 inches. Okay. Click one line and another line. It'll put a 6-inch radius on there based on the line type that I have selected. 1, 2, 1, 2. Doesn't want to do that one. Oh, it did that one. There we go. Okay, so that's, now if I go on detail line and these other 2, you can sort of play with them. I'll pick a different line here. Okay, this first one, you sort of define the center point, the radius of the circle, and then how much of that circle you want to draw. Could be useful. If you're ever in doubt about what a tool does, just go ahead. I'll start the new tool here. I'll do the next one over. Now you can look down over here. This is your status bar. Like the command line, excuse me, in AutoCAD, this one will tell you exactly what Revit is looking for. Click to enter arc start point. Click once. Holy cow, I think it snapped up there. Let's try again. I'm going to click here, 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 here. So I'm just sort of clicking at the end of each of these lines and creating a kind of a squiggly line there. So in that case, that tool is never really starting an arc from scratch. It's always going off of an existing line. Okay, I'm gonna hit escape a couple times. There we go. So detail line. The last one here is spline. This is just like AutoCAD. So I'm gonna select that and I'm just gonna sort of just start clicking around here so you can get a feel for this. All right, and I hit escape twice. So there's my spline. Now if I click on it, I can edit all of those control points. Oop, I made it longer there. Maybe I don't want to do that. Okay, and I still have it selected here. I can add a control point up here in the toolbar. So I'm going to select that one. Let me, again, add control point. Pick a spline chord to add spline control. Okay, this one. There we go. We just added it, another control point right in there. So let's do that again. I'm going to select it, add control point. Okay, I put one right between those two, but now I have control over that one as well. Likewise, I can delete a control point. Boom, boom. Oop, delete control point, boom. So if you select that, you can hit delete, and then you can click on one of the little circles, and that control point will go away. Okay, that's spline. Spline you can change to a different line type too. There we go. Okay, detail line. I'm going to do an ellipse here. This is an ellipse, half ellipse. These ones I don't use all that much, but you can just sort of feel them out. So if I grab this one, you basically define the radius or the width of the ellipse and then the height of the ellipse. It's not only the radius, but it's also like the direction. So this one's obviously more angled. There we go. Hit escape. Annotate detail line. Half ellipse. Click once, click twice, and you can really stretch that out. Again, those ellipses, not all that useful, but you may find yourself using them. Okay, annotate detail line. This one's very important, this last one. It's called pick lines. All right, now if I wanted to make a wide line, I can use existing lines that I've already drawn, so I can draw basically a line over a line. So if I select pick lines, let's see. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Let me show you what this is really useful for. Not so much useful in drawing like a detail view like this. Like you wouldn't really use that in a detail view. You're just sort of drafting and creating some additional drawing that would be put into the drawing set. But let's go to the level 1 floor plan. Here I am in the level 1 floor plan. We have nothing in here. We do not see the drawing we've created because those are view specific elements, so they're only living in that drafting practice view that I have listed there. So what I want to do in this view is actually draw a detail line, and then I'm going to use the pick line tool and turn that line into a wall. So if I go to annotate detail line, let's do something a little more complicated like an arc. So I'm going to grab this arc here. First one, start point, end point, give it a curve. Start point, end point, give that a curve. Start point, end point. So maybe your project's pretty complicated. It has a crazy wall that you can say draft, but you couldn't really make from scratch using the architecture wall tool. So I could sort of draft the outline of that wall and then use this as a template to place the wall. So I'm going to go to architecture, wall. So if I look in my type selector here, it says basic wall 8 inches. Let's go in our type selector. I'm going to click that little down arrow and select any wall you want. I'll do brick on CMU. We're going to leave our height unconnected at 20 feet. That's fine. And the location line we'll leave at wall center line. What that means is when I select the wall, when I select the line I have drawn here, the wall will be centered exactly along that line. It won't be to either side of that line, it'll be centered on it. So instead of using the line tool to create a wall here, I'm going to use the pick lines tool. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to select my wall or my first curved line, second curved line, and third curved line. So it looks like it just sort of offset the line, but actually it created a wall along that curved line. So this curved wall would be actually pretty difficult to make just using sort of some of these line tools. It could be, but you might find yourself like, well, it's just easier to draft it and then I can use it. If I go to architecture wall, I could go to one of these other curved lines here like this one, and I could just sort of draw the wall curved from the start using any one of the techniques we've used. But sometimes, like I said, it's just easier to sort of draft it out and see the line first before you place and then turn that into a wall. So floor plan, as you know, is a two-dimensional drawing, so it really looks like we've done nothing here. So besides offset the line, so let's make a default 3D view, which we can do by pressing the little house up here in the quick access toolbar. And you can see we have in fact created a curved wall. Okay, so nothing new there. So I'm using my shift and middle mouse button to look around that wall, or shift and right click button to look around. I'm also using the middle mouse button just to pan. Okay, so that's the pick lines tool, and that's primarily how you would use it. Now there's other elements besides wall that could use the pick line tool to sort of come into existence. So we can use the pick line tool to create structural elements or whatever element it is we need. But that's primarily how we use it. We draw a line first and then we select it and turn that line into something else, something more sophisticated. Okay, let's go back to that drawing practice. So here's our beautiful drawing. Okay, so if I go to annotate detail line, that covers everything in that first box. Now that we have elements drawn, let's talk about how we manipulate them. Okay, this again, pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab an element. I'm going to grab this ellipse here. And right away, Revit's saying, hey, what do you want to do to this element? Do you want to move it? Do you want to change its line type? First thing I'm going to do is move it. So I'm just going to click the Move tool. I can click anywhere in space. Click once, give it a direction, and then you can type in a distance. Move tool again. You could click on the actual element and move it. Or you can simply do what we did like in the first example, the Move tool, select the element, go to Move, click anywhere in space, give it a direction, and then type in a value. That's primarily how I use it. You can also move by just selecting, left mouse click the object, hold down, and just move it. Now that's sort of your coarse move, but your fine tuning you're going to want to do much like we just did. Okay, let's copy this. So I'm going to select it, go to the copy tool, click in space, give it a direction, 2 feet, boom, we just made a copy. Okay, let's select our copy there. Let's go to the copy tool. In the options bar, let's select multiple. I'm just going to copy it down 2 feet, 4 feet. Oops, that second one I kind of screwed up there. Let me just delete that. So let's do, I want to copy this. So I'm going to do copy. Let's move it down 2 feet. Okay, and then we can move down the copy 2 feet. Move down that copy 2 feet, and you can keep going because we've checked multiple up here in the options bar. Okay, so let's select another element. I'll grab this circle. Ooh, that wouldn't be a good one for our next tool. Let's go this rectangle. So I'm going to select all sides of that rectangle. Now instead of copy, I'm going to do the next one over, which is rotate. So I'm going to click that. Now Revit will immediately place the center of rotation centered on your selection. So in this case, I have one rectangle selected, so it's going to rotate about the center of that rectangle. So I can just click anywhere, give it a direction, clockwise or counterclockwise, and then you can give it a value, 10 degrees. So that just rotated 10 degrees clockwise. Likewise, I could select that whole rectangle, go to rotate. Let's say I want to rotate it about a different location. I can left click and hold that little dot and move it to where I want. So left click, hold, move it to where you want, click a spot in space, and give it a value. Okay, so that's rotate. Now you can rotate multiple elements. So I'm going to grab this rectangle, and I'm going to grab this rectangle. Hover over, hit tab, hold down control, and click. So I can click both, select both of them, or I could have made a box over both like that. Then I'm going to hit rotate, and you can see it puts it right in the middle between the two. But then I can move this to wherever I want and rotate. So that one, just play with, you'll get the hang of it. All right, so I'll select something else, and I'm going to go, let's see what else we have here. So this one, trim extend to corner, very useful. I'm not going to select anything in this case to show you this one. What I'm going to do is get to the same modification tools by not selecting something, which is pretty simple. Instead of annotate, we're just going to go up to modify. Okay, there they are. So I'm going to select this guy right here, trim extend to corner. This is essentially fillet. Okay, so what I can do here, I can grab a line and grab a line, and it'll bring those two together. Here, 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 there, and here, and here. Now that line went all the way over before, and it's sort of connected over here, and it's saying, hey, do you want to unjoin that and pull it back and connect it to this one? I'm going to say unjoin element, so it does that. Okay, so you will use that a lot for two-dimensional elements, such like these lines, and you will use it for three-dimensional elements, such as walls. It does the same exact thing. These next two I do not use very much, but I will show you how they work. So if I go annotate detail line, I'm just going to draw a line here, and I'll draw a line there. Okay. So I'm going to go to modify. I'm going to grab that first one, trim extend single element. So I'll grab that one. I'm going to look down at my status bar, and it says select a reference as the trim or extend boundary. So in this case, these lines are crossing. So this will be our trim boundary. So I've selected that line. And now it says select a line or wall to trim. Click on the part you want to keep. Boom. Okay. I'm going to do that one again. I'm going to use this as my trim boundary, and I want to keep this part of the line. Okay. That's how that one works. Now let's show you what it's like for extend. So we have two lines like this. I can click that button, click the boundary, then click the line, and it'll go to it. So the same tool will do both trimming and extending. The next one over is essentially the same exact thing, but multiple elements. So if you had multiple lines up here that you all wanted to extend to that one, that's the tool you could use. Or you simply could just grab the line, grab the edge of the line, and drag. I tend to use that latter method versus the trimming extending. Okay, moving on. The red X, delete. Okay, select something, hit that, delete, or simply press delete on your keyboard. If I select an element, I could also lock it in place by clicking this little pin button. Okay, boom, there's the pin. I cannot move this. I can't do anything to that line until I unpin it. If I select it here, click unpin, now I can do what I need to this line. I'm going to leave some of these alone, but I want to go over this one right here, which is split element. If I select that, you get a little X-Acto blade. So if ever you lose this toolbar up here, like you happen to be somewhere else, you can always hit modify, take you right back there. Or you can select an element and it'll take you there. Okay, I'm going to hit that split element tool, and I'm just going to slice up this line. By doing that, now I have several different lines, and I can split them up or whatever the case may be. So super useful tool. You can also use that to split a wall up. The next one over is the one I typically use for splitting a wall. You can use that one to sort of put a break in a wall, and then you can grab the ends of that walls and sort of make that gap bigger, smaller, or whatever you need to do. Okay, so the next two are your mirror commands. So if I want to say mirror, let's say these two lines, okay? First one, I selected my lines I want to mirror. I select that button, and then I can just draw, and it will mirror about the line I drew. So I drew it sort of this way, so it's mirroring it over that line over to here. The other one is pick an axis, so I'll grab this line here. I'll go to that pick axis, and I can grab a line, any line, and it'll mirror it about that line. So this is that line over here. So this line got mirrored about this axis right here. Here we go. Periodically, you get those save me windows, and you can go ahead and do that. Okay, next one you'll use quite a bit, and you can use this for three-dimensional elements, or you can use this for line drawings such as this. So if I go to the offset tool, I can type in an offset. In this case, it says 1 foot. If copy is checked, you'll get a copy. If it's not checked, the line will just move. So this line, for example, I'm going to hover over to the left side of it, and you can see like Revit saying, I'm going to move this 1 foot to the left. Is that what you want? I'm going to click and accept it. I can keep offsetting, keep making copies. If I uncheck the copy, I'm just going to click this one, and it's going to move that line out. See how that's doing that? Okay. Looks like it's got a little confused here. I can hit unjoin elements. Like I said, sometimes you get those warnings. It's just saying, hey, take a closer look, inspect, make sure it's exactly what you want. Okay, the last one I'm going to show you here is the align tool. Okay, so I'm going to draw 2 lines. Actually, let's do this in the floor plan. I'm going to draw 2 walls. I'm going to draw a wall here, hit escape once, and I'll draw a line here. Okay, so I'm going to go to the align tool. I'm going to hover over this top line. Maybe I'll hit tab. So I'm going to hover over and hit tab. So you could select the middle, the edges of the wall. I'll grab the top edge and click. Places a dash line. This is saying this is where I want elements to go. Now I'm going to select the top edge of this wall, and that line and that wall will move to that location. Let me just show you that one more time. Align. I'll grab the top edge. I'm saying, let's move something there. Grab the top edge of this wall, and it'll move there. Okay, pretty straightforward. You can do that also for 2-dimensional objects, just like you can 3-dimensional ones. So those are the modified tools. So we covered both, so annotate, detail, line. We covered this box here, which you'll see on a lot of tools. It's integral to a lot of tools. When I want to make a wall, for example, you'll see this, right? It's saying draft a line and create a 3D wall. And we went over these modification tools. 2 more things I want to cover in this lecture are how do I make my own line weights and how do I do hatches. Okay, so let's say the wide isn't wide enough and you want wider lines. Okay, we can create our own that would appear in this list. Okay, so I'm going to go up to Manage, Additional Settings, Line Styles. Manage, Additional Settings, Line Styles. I'm going to click that. We get this little list here. It says lines with a plus. If I hit that, all the lines in our list are on here. In addition, you're seeing some extra lines here because they're part of different tools. And we'll find those and see those later as we learn Revit. But look at, there's thin lines, wide lines, medium lines, hidden lines. They're all in there. So I'm going to make a new line type. So I'm going to go ahead and hit new down here. I'll call this one wide 2. Now I could use the same syntax as them. In fact, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do I'm not sure what that's called. It's not caret. It's not parentheses. It's kind of like parentheses, I guess. I'm going to call this one wide 2. I'm going to hit OK. You can leave the subcategory of lines. It just means it's going to go in this list. Oh, it doesn't like those characters. Okay, so let's just call it wide 2. Hit OK. Now with this new line type, I have control over the line weight, so I'll double this one. And I also have control over the color, so maybe I'll just put a funky color in there. All right, and hit OK. Now when I select a line, I can go up to wide 2, and I have that line now. Okay, so you can make 100 line types if you like. Okay, last thing I want to show you is how to make a filled region or a hatch. So I'm going to go to Annotate, and instead of Detail Line, I'm going to choose Region. All right, now this symbol up here, this X and this green check means you are in a tool. Revit is looking for something from you to sort of complete this tool. If I hit the red X right now, I'll just leave this. That's fine. Then I can go do something else. But if I try to go do something else right now, like look at, I'm going to go in architecture. How come everything's grayed out? It's because I'm going to go back over to this modify, create, filled region boundary. This tool I already started. It's because we're in a tool. Okay. to leave this tool before we do anything else. So to create a hatch, Revit is first looking for a boundary. So we can just draw a boundary. So in this case, I'll just do a rectangle. Okay, and hit the green check. Okay, so there's a hatch in my boundary there. Okay, now I could select that hatch and I can go up to my type selector and I can pick something else. Go there again, pick a different type. Likewise, I can select that hatch, go up to my toolbar and click Edit Boundary. Now I can really just mess with the line work, hit the green check, and now my hatch is changed. Now here's another very awesome tool. Let's make a new filled region. Now instead of thin lines, let's choose invisible lines. Make another rectangle, and I'll click the green check. And as you guessed it, in that case, it's just showing the hatch, but it's not showing the boundary lines. Now this hatch is pretty small because this drawing I've made is actually quite large. So if I just drew a line here, I can see that this is 30 feet long. So that's why this hatch is pretty tiny. Okay, so we can go here, select different hatches. And if you wanted to make your own hatch or you're not seeing something on this list, you can corner me in class and we'll go over that. So I'm going to leave it here. Main takeaway, drafting tools, modification tools, how to create your own line weights, and how to create a filled region, otherwise known as a hatch.